I want to go and represent my state and ensure that the Constitution is obeyed not 90% of the time or 17% of the time or 65% of the time, but 100% of the time. And I'm willing to tell on those that aren't.
What got you involved? I know you're a minister. You're doing a great job on YouTube. You got some great videos out, and you're known as the minister of truth. But what got you involved with the Liberty movement, and why are you putting all the time to educate people and get the word word out there for people?
Well, not enough people are doing it. And the people that are in the position to really make a difference, they aren't using their position to make a difference. And I'm going to be honest with you, matter of fact, I was planning on doing a video today calling a spade a spade. I went and did the first debate, and they asked about diversity. Now, the Republican Party admittedly stated that maybe they could have done more to reach across the aisle, to be more inclusive. So they come up with this national mandate. They asked the question about diversity, and true, I did say we have to meet people where they are, but I said a lot more of substance than that, but that was the only part that they took. The other guys, they didn't even quote, that they were basically dumbfounded and didn't even know what to say. And that's the press.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to me, and I knew that I had an uphill battle starting, but after that first debate and the reporting that took place after the debate, it's more than just an uphill climb. It is a vertical climb, straight to vertical.
Right, and and there's a lot of frustration in the Liberty movement, also the Tea Party. I just watched Mitt Romney right before the State of the Union, and basically he was telling Fox News, he didn't think Rand Paul or Ted Cruz would be good candidates, and then he started talking about repealing Obamacare, but then the alternative, what he wants and what the establishment GOP wants, is basically more regulation in the healthcare system. There's no option of a free market solution. And so I think Americans are frustrated because, okay, they're getting either the option of soft socialism with the Republican Party, or they're getting hardcore Marxism, redistribution of wealth. There's really no, between the two options is where I think a lot of people are looking for freedom. And right now, both parties are not giving that. You do have leaders, that are running. You look at the, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, some of the folks in South Carolina that are trying to run for Senate. And of course, you stepped in the race. You're running for Senate. For people that are really frustrated with the two-party system, which is really turning out to be a one-party system, what can people do about that? What's the solution?
Well, I know what the solution is. Put somebody in a position that's not afraid to die. Now, people constantly talk about, and I guess this is where people kind of shy away from me. And that's understandable. They talk about the Ted Cruz's, which I was never a fan of Ted Cruz, or Rand Paul after he endorsed Mitt Romney. These guys are in a position to make a real difference, but they don't. And when people ask me, well, what do you mean? They're fighting for us. And the point I keep trying to make folks, if you see, I know historically speaking that it only takes one person, just one person willing to give up everything to change a room. It has been done time and time and time again. And most of those times, they killed the person. But they were willing to make that sacrifice for what they believed in, and things changed when they did it. These guys aren't willing to lay their lives down on the line, because if they were, they would be exposing the true corruption that takes place in Washington, D.C. at state and local government levels. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, they both knew that it wasn't a real government shutdown. They knew that they were just posturing. They know that. They know what the real deal is that's going down with all the stuff that they're up there doing. The fact that it didn't, they knew what was going on with the NDAA indefinite, but they didn't come out and give people the real skinny on it. Any day one of those guys was willing to just really stand up and lay it on the line, what our government is actually doing to us. Most of the people in this country don't even know how important the Fourth Amendment was to us. I think the only guy that was willing to lay it on the line and laid it on the line was Judge Andrew Napolitano. And they shut him up by simply taking away his voice from mainstream or corporate-backed media.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of frustration, even with Rand Paul endorsing Mitch McConnell over Matt Bevin. We're scratching their heads like, okay, do you really have to play politics, or are you really listening, to people that really want to change? So it sounds like you want to actually be the leader in the Senate, and you want to lead guys like this and try to, persuade them to follow you on these principles. And stop playing party politics.
I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to lead anybody to do anything. The American people deserves a person that will go and represent what the Constitution talked about. That's not leading. That's just simply doing what you were elected to do. The American people, I don't want them to elect me to go and lead. Because I couldn't do it without them. The fact of the matter is I know this. And I've never asked the press to cover me. Never. All I said was, give me the same mention when you're just talking about who's running that you do everybody else, because that is fair. That's letting the American people know that there are other people in the race. I look for the people to do what they need to do to go and check me out. So they don't have to do 30-minute segments on me. I talk all the time about, when I say talk to black people, you ever ask yourself, why is black-on-black crime worse than it has ever been? Why do our schools constantly suck? Why unemployment has always been high for black folk? We're just talking about it now because it's hitting white folks. But yet, when you look at Atlanta, when you look at Decatur, these are cities ran by black people. But these things it's not a mecca for black people. It's hell to live in some of these neighborhoods in the black community. You ever ask yourself why? And I was just sitting here listening to Kasim Reed. He owned the press today. They came in to kick him in the teeth, but he straightened. He owned his mistake by saying, we shouldn't have released everybody at the same time. He said, but there are a lot of things that they just wanted to bring pain to him. And he's a Democrat. And he told them, and he set them straight, and he said, look, I'll own my responsibility. But I'm not going to let you sit up here and present to the people this misconception that we didn't do things right. Here we were in day one. Last time it was day 3. So we've done a lot of things a lot better. So you're bringing circus on day 1 as opposed to day 3. He said, and that's not fair to the people. He owned them. But see, that's the press. And then I thought to myself, Herman Cain knows what it is that I'm dealing with the press. He's got his own radio show. You think that man has reached out to me? We've reached out to him. Ron Paul, whom I supported vigorously. All these folk that are in a position where a single mention could turn the tide in a race and make it not about money. Because if the people in the state of Georgia knew what I stood for, and that is them and their ability to not be abused by our government on a continuous basis, I would win this election hands down, because I'm not doing it for myself. This I know for a fact. So there's nobody really in the media that has anything impressive to say for me, unless they're trying to tell the truth.
Yeah,
This kind of thing that I'm frustrated with, that I'm sick of with the press, because it is the press that is killing this country, because they keep the truth from the country. If you tell the people what the people in D.C. are doing to them, I know the people would do something completely different. But you got to tell them.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you about. And I saw a YouTube video. I thought it was excellent. It was talking about how black Democrats need to come out and vote for you. And I think you're totally right. I mean, in South Carolina, the black unemployment rate, no one talks about it. Even black leaders in the state don't talk about it. I mean, it's terrible. It's like over, definitely, it's more than half of white unemployment. Young men and women, African Americans that are 18 to 25, I mean, it's like 70%. It's awful. Say that somebody, African American, wants to start a business, and he wants to start a retail store. He has to compete with these crony capitalist handouts, retailers, big retailers that come in, get unfair treatment, and he can't. I mean, this person can't compete. I mean, it seems like, decades ago, you could really put together a shoestring budget. You can, take out money for 401k, take a risk, and start a business. I mean, more and more, it's harder to start a business. I mean, and it's even harder for those in the black community to do as well, as far as entrepreneurs. So what do you want to do to change that, or to create an environment where people can thrive economically and they can start their own business, which really is the engine for job creation?
Well, the short answer is, you got to get government out of the way. I listened to Obama the other day, basically boasting, I've got a pen, and I'm not going to sit back and wait for Congress to move, because they move kind of slow. Now, here's the underlying stuff that the American people is not getting. Now, the press, they get it. They understand it. Those in Congress, they get it. They understand it. Excuse me. Obama is setting stage for 2014 elections and 2016 for Democrats, because he threw in there, I'm going to make sure that people have opportunities. I'm going to make sure that people have jobs. I'm going to deal with the situation with minimum wage, making $10.10 an hour. All of this nonsense. And the press is putting it out there and feeding the garbage to the people, so that they will continue to flow down the same path that they have been flowing down, when the answers to our problems are to get government out so that people are able to go and create jobs. We don't create more rich people. We help rich people get richer. We now create more poor people. That is all we do. I couldn't survive on $10.10 an hour. That is nothing. I couldn't support my family on $10.10 an hour. Big deal. What about those opportunities that you just got through talking about? But nobody wants to hear this, because we have conditioned the American mindset to think that government is the solution to our problems, when government is undeniably the root of all of our problems. As long as government, they asked us the question in the first debate about the farmers. The farmer bill always pigeonholed. Well, you know why? Both Democrats and Republicans allow the farm bill to be tied to food stamps. Okay, constantly keeps the people, the farmers, in a state of flux, so that they can get what they want for the food stamp programs to guarantee votes. But the truth of the matter is that nobody will stand up and say, they're both simply different forms of welfare. subsidies for farmers to not produce, the government being involved in how much milk is produced to control what milk is sold for, the government being involved in how much sugar is produced and what is sold for. Government ain't got no business in farming. They need to let farmers farm. So those are just some examples of where all of this has gone wrong. All of these trade agreements that have put us in a trade deficit. You call Cisco, you get somebody over in India to provide that service to you. Those used to be American jobs.
Yeah.
That is made possible by government. And this stuff, it ain't that hard to understand. It's not that hard. But I don't have a platform to reach the people and get the word out there. And the very people that I would think, I just thought to myself that if I saw what this one black reporter was trying to do to Mayor Kasim Reed, all these black anchors that, see, you know what? Knowing what I know now, and if I was an anchor, I would probably lose my job because I would be bringing people who are telling the truth. I would be giving them a platform to speak to the people. I most certainly would. But that's not what's happening. The people are we sit back and we allow the people to be led down this path. When I go into a room and do a debate, if I've had one person come up and tell me after I spoke, and not just a debate, but when I was going around and doing my speaking, man, ain't nobody ever said it like that. I didn't even realize it. If I had one person do it, I have 30 people do it. I changed the room, and not because of who I am, because I'm telling them the stuff that they need to know. I know that when you tell a person the truth, they tend to do something different. But I can't reach enough people at a debate, and I can't reach enough people at these county meetings that I go to. Those people come because they care, and yeah, I might get their votes, but you know what? Probably wouldn't even amount to 2% of the vote when election time comes, because it's just simply not enough. And the press is doing a blackout, lockout, and lockout, and that is the reality that I've come to realize.
Let me ask you this too, and it's something that really struck me, something really important to me personally, and that's education. You talked about school choice, and actually you're speaking in the same video, talking to Black Democrats. I thought it was excellent. Can you repeat what you said? You talked about having the ability to choose a more competitive school, and also the chance for families to be able to use, I guess you would say, vouchers, where they could take some of that money that they're spending in taxes and spend it on the school of their choice to better educate their children.
Yeah, sure. One of the fundamental principles of biblical teaching, God said, "My children perish for a lack of knowledge." So we know that knowledge is important. Also, the application of that knowledge, and that application comes from wisdom. So what has wisdom taught us about the application of knowledge? When you interfere with how knowledge is applied, you can manipulate and control people. Well, what have they done? The biggest way that they have come to destroy black schools, government came up with a plan. We'll give you X number of dollars for each student you keep in school. So now principals are motivated to keep bad kids in school with the good kids who want to come and learn, who have parents that actually care about their education, because we have people that have children that ain't got no business having children. I know it's a God-given right, and God forbid me to ever do anything to stand in the way of that. But there's some parents that don't need to be parents because they don't care whether their kids learn or not. School is just a daycare. So we got all these bad kids in school. Teachers spend more time disciplining the bad kids than they do the kids who actually want to learn. So what happens? The good kids, they suffer. Then the governor, Sonny Perdue, comes up with No Child Left Behind. Or no, George Bush, I believe. And No Child Left Behind gets pushed. That even exacerbates the situation even more so. So there's more of a push to keep the kids who school is nothing but a daycare for. what ends up happening? Kids, rather than seeing them fail because they aren't capable of meeting the standards, teachers start teaching to keep their jobs. You put teachers in a situation where they say, well, you know what, the hell with it. You know, this is what they say I need to do. I can't do nothing with this kid. What else is a teacher supposed to do? Go and lose her job? Well, hell, I'm not going to hold the teachers accountable at this point because we have people in the media that do the same damn thing. Won't tell the people the truth because the corporate backers tell them, no, you better not have that guy on the show. No, you better not do this. It's the same thing, and the people pulling the strings that behind it all is government. Now, from my own personal experience, my daughter, when it came time for them to go to high school, my wife and I opted not to send them to high school because of the situation with a neighbor. Their daughter, they found notes in her drawer, her dresser drawer, where she had brought home and hidden away. It wasn't her daughter, it was their niece. And they were keeping her, and she was going to school here. And they found a note where she was being threatened, or her family was, their safety, if she revealed what was taking place. And what was taking place, they were forcing her to engage in fellatio amongst a group of boys, 12 to be exact, in order to be initiated. And of course, when my neighbors found this out, they packed her up and sent her back home. They said if she told, she would kill. They would kill her guardian. My wife and I decided then, well, our kid's not going to high school. I don't even want them to have to be bothered with that kind of nonsense. And who do you talk to about that at schools? So we struggled to send our children to private school. Now, when we tried to talk to them about sending them to another school, we couldn't. They said, I'm sorry, you got to go to the school that's in your district. Well, I was in a black district, and the school in that black district, it sucked, just like many of the others. So what was my other choice? I could lie and say my children live somewhere else, but that's not fair. That's not right. So the only other option I had, legal recourse, was to, we had to struggle to send our children to a private Christian school. And even that turned out to be a fiasco. So that's what I went through personally. When you take away a parent's ability to provide their children with the best education that they possibly can, it shouldn't be restricted to just those who can afford to pay for private school. If a parent is willing to drive their kid across town to that better side of town where most of the kids, their parents are concerned about their kids' education, et cetera, then that parent ought to be allowed to make that sacrifice. But government involvement has taken that away. And so they force parents to have to either lie or make greater sacrifices to send their kids to private school, or, simply not care about their child's education. And, my wife and I, we're not going to just throw our hands up. We want to do what we had to do for our kids. So I know I've gone away. I am trying to give you as much insight as I possibly can as the situation as to what many black parents who are actually good parents have to deal with their children. And I think it's only fair that if these schools are going to remain in the shape that they're in because of government involvement, at least government ought to provide a safety net for parents that actually care about the education that their children get so that they can send them someplace else.
Right, and basically that'll just make all the other bad schools realize that they need to be competitive. Otherwise, they're going to lose money from the district by all the students leaving. One thing also, and I was very disappointed. I mean, I don't know if I really should expect anything from our president, but the problem with the Justice Department and our prison systems. Even Rick Perry's getting a lot of criticism because he wants to decriminalize marijuana and some of the drug laws. But you made a mention, and I thought it was interesting in one of your videos, that say that there's a drug crime, and basically the the black will really get more prison sentence and a harsher conviction than compared to the white person. There's a lot of inequality there. There's a lot of problems with our prison system. I mean, the fact that someone gets a marijuana charge, and they're in there for years, with other hardened criminals. I mean, there's so much to talk about regarding that. I just wanted to get your thoughts. Maybe you can expound about your thoughts on how, what we need to do to reform this situation.
Well, first off, personally speaking, I think people ought to be able to use whatever drugs they want to, whatever they want to do to their body. There should be no law prohibiting a person from doing whatever in hell they decide they want to do with their own bodies, as long as it does not impact, impede, interfere, prohibit the liberties or freedoms of their neighbor. So that's just from a personal perspective, and I base that in the fact that during Jesus' life, his 3-year ministry, he never engaged in a single act to forcibly stop somebody from doing whatever in the hell it was they wanted to do. So I take that lesson from him. Secondly, marijuana has not been proven to be more harmful than alcohol. Quite frankly, it has been proven to be more therapeutic in the treatment of certain illnesses as opposed to alcohol. So even Paul said to Peter, hey, drink a little wine for thine infirmities, denoting some possible medicinal benefits. So being that Congress can drink all the booze that they want, I think people ought to be able to smoke all the weed that they want, and it shouldn't be legalized just for medicinal purposes. I don't think it's any more harmful than alcohol. Of course, we don't want our children going around smoking. Of course, we'll have certain prohibitions with the distribution of it, like we do alcohol. That's with anything that could prove to be harmful in the wrong hands. But I would like to see marijuana decriminalized. I would like to see all drug use legislation that prohibits it abolished. Why? We shouldn't be locking people up for using drugs. If they aren't out there on the street selling it, and they're just simply using it, we shouldn't be sending them to prison. But there's money to be made. Come on, man.
Yeah.
You know what the deal is. It's about money. The prison industrial complex. There's money in illicit drug use. And that's why we lock the people up for it. Blacks, 13% of the total population of the United States. Yet they are arrested. They account for 36% of the arrests and steal 60% of our inmate population. Come on. Of course, there are some inequities in how the laws are enforced and applied. We know that. But it amazes me that black people can't see that. Look at who you got running these black cities. Why is that? As a mayor, I would at least ask the question. As a black mayor, I would at least ask the question. I want to know, hands down, no ifs and buts about it. I want to know who is it that's committing most of the crimes in this city. I want there to be no doubt, no question, that cops aren't just targeting black people because those are the easiest arrests to make. I want to know I would at least ask a question to prove that it's wrong. And if the facts bear out that blacks just commit more crimes, then fine, so be it. Let the facts be what they are.
Let me ask you about the campaign. Who are you running against as far as the primary?
They have 7 opponents. Gingrey, who didn't think it was important enough for him to even show up at the first debate. We have Paul Brown, who boasts his 90% constitutional voting record. But what good is that if 10% violate 40% of my constitutional protections, like the Fourth Amendment, his supporting indefinite detention, FISA, the Patriot Act. You get where I'm going?
Yeah.
These are questions that folk won't ask. Then we got Kingston, who talks about he cut $3 billion out of spending in his district. Big deal. That's like, when you compare that $3 billion to $17 trillion in debt, that's like a person with one penny in his pocket compared to somebody with 5,000. Oh boy, you made a real big dent. I even ran the numbers. If all 535 members of the House and Senate were to be responsible for $3 billion in cuts, it would still be less than a 10% dent in the $17 trillion deficit. So big deal, Congressman Kingston. Then we got Karen Handel. She's been in the room before. She lost for a reason. Why go back? Find something else to do. And those 3 guys that I just mentioned, they were there when our debt went from $4 trillion to $17 trillion. Okay, and then the other 3 guys, Eugene Yu, Art Gardner, and Perdue, who's a nephew of Sonny Perdue. They've never been in the room. If you ask me, we're the only 4 people that, we should be looking at. Okay,
right.
That's just my opinion. So, but those are the 4 people that I'm running.
And for those voters in your district, why should they vote for you and not these other opponents?
Well, one, I've never been in the room, so therefore I'm not a part of the problem. 2, I'm a grassroots citizen just like they are. I understand what happens at the working man's level because I'm a working class citizen just like they are. So I know what it is. And probably, thirdly, the most important is I'm not going to try and lead anybody. I want to go and represent my state and ensure that the Constitution is obeyed not 90% of the time or 17% of the time or 65% of the time, but 100% of the time. And I'm willing to tell on those that aren't.
What can they do to, because I understand, the frustration of grassroots people, working class people that, they're not bought and paid by lobbyists. They really want to make a difference. They want to bring liberty to the country. But they don't have the resources like, the rich and powerful people, the people that have connections. What can they do to help you?
Each one reach one. And it's what I'm going to say in the debate this coming Saturday. I'm going to tell them straight up, and I'm going to call the press out. And you're hearing it first. I don't have the press. I'm not going to have the benefit of the press. All I have are you. And if you are not willing to go and tell your neighbor the way that it used to be before we had corporate-backed media, we will lose. We will lose without a doubt. Without a doubt, we will lose. The only way to win is for each one to go out and reach one and donate what you can. Because I told them, I don't need $1 million. I don't even need $100,000. I just need enough money to be able to pay whatever fees it is that we got to pay when the time comes, and to continue to travel the state and speak to the people and bring the message of liberty and freedom. And I need every person in the room to go out and change a room someplace else. And that's how you win. And that's what grassroots is. Now, these other folks throw it around as a catchphrase, but all they see from 100,000 feet up in the air is just the top of the grass. If they can see that, they never even get down to the roots. But I'm down here I see the actual root that supports the grass. They simply walk on the grass whenever they come in for a landing. They don't care nothing about the roots. All of their money and their backing, their financing, comes from corporate-backed string posts who want to ensure that the people who go along to get along continue to get reelected and don't go up there making waves and exposing the truth for what the truth really is about what they're doing in Washington, D.C.
And where can they go to find out more information? Do you have a website?
Yeah, grayson2014.com.
I really do appreciate your being candid. It's really refreshing to listen to somebody that just says it the way it is.
Hey, dude, I have absolutely nothing to hide, and everything that I have to lose, every other American citizen like me, they have the same thing to lose. We all have a great deal to lose, but more importantly, I'm 53. I've lived longer than I'm going to live. I got kids, man, I got one getting ready to come out of college in a year, another one in 2 years, one going to college next year. What's going to be there for them?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to be there for them
right.
if we don't turn this around?